Hey y'all, what's up? This is Rosie, and I was just sitting here thinking about how the world, or a lot of people, millions of people really, how we are just so mesmerized by true crime and learning about dangerous people. And I was thinking that sometimes you just don't know how close in proximity you are to someone who has or will commit a crime so heinous that you sometimes don't stop to think of how lucky you are to have gotten away from them. These are unknown true crimes that happened here in Alabama concerning people that I actually knew. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about, I'm only going to call him KM. I went to school with him, and he was one of my bullies at first. He used to make fun of me because I was so quiet. I didn't talk to anybody. I hated people. I spent a lot of time trying to hide out either in the middle or in the back of the classroom until I couldn't see the board anymore and had to sit up front. But I just wanted to be invisible because I was so used to being bullied for no reason other than that I was quiet and didn't talk to anybody. I just wasn't like anybody else. And for some reason, people seemed to zero in on that, and he was one of them. And he used to love to sing. Like, I didn't see him in a lot of productions that went on in school, but he used to walk around the hall singing all the time, and he was kind of a good-looking kid. He reminded me of that one tall guy in Boys to Men. If you look at one of their videos, there's this one dude who is like the tallest guy. He's tall and he's skinny. I forgot what his name's, Sean or something. I forgot what his name is. I could look it up, but I just don't feel like it. But that's who he reminded me of. And he used to have like a mustache, and he used to work at a restaurant with my now ex-husband and my now former mother-in-law. Anyway, they loved him. They used to love to hear him sing. They were friends with him. He was friendly with them. And they just loved the guy. As I said, I couldn't stand him until one day he and I were sitting in the lunchroom. And this was years before I met my now ex-husband. But he and I were sitting in the lunchroom trading barbs as usual. And I started talking about my former stepmom, who to this day, I love her. And he heard me say her nickname. I'm not going to say it, but we call her basically the name of a treat or a dessert. And that's all I'll say. And he heard me say her name, and he told me that he knew her. And I said, how do you know it's the same one? And he said, well, what's her real name? So I told him. He said, yeah, I know her. And I said, how? He said, I go to church with her. And so, I started describing her. And the more I described her, the more excited he got it because he knew her. He knew my stepmom. And so he used to give me messages from her to me, from me to her. And he just loved the fact that he knew my stepmom, and he loved my stepmom because she's a sweet woman. To this day, she is a very sweet lady. And one day he came to school and he was like, your mama had a baby. And I said, my mom did not have a baby. And he said, yes, she did. And he said her nickname, and he said she had a baby. And so, sure enough, she had a child, and that young lady is in her 20s now, and she's very beautiful. But on to the true crime thing. Well, the last time, I'll just say this before I tell you what he did. He was at work one night and he wanted to go home because he had a date and he didn't drive himself to work. So he had my at the time, my boyfriend. He had us take him home. I was in the car, and he saw me. He hadn't seen me in a while. And he said to my ex, he said, "Do you want to trade?" He said, "Trade what?" He said, "Trade girlfriends." And my jaw dropped because I did not know that this guy thought of me that way. As far as I knew, he thought I was ugly. That's as far as I knew, but apparently not. So that was the last time I saw him in like 97, I believe. Yeah, it was in 1997. And maybe a year or two later, I read the newspaper and I read his name. And it turns out that he was SAing girls, or, you know, he was doing things to young girls at a local college here, a very huge college that is nationally known for our medical facilities and the medical campus and the hospitals around that campus. He was doing that to girls that went to that school. And the last I heard of him, he got life in prison with no chance of parole because of doing that to those young ladies. And when I heard about that, I was floored. I was shocked. So that was the first guy. Second guy was a dude that I dated. I told a little bit about him in another video. And it's a video that was telling about what you can come up with by just searching, using your search engine on your computer. I won't say his name, but yeah, I dated him when I was 17 and he was 22. My mom knew about him. I took him to meet my mom because I thought that I was going to get stuck marrying this guy, because he told me quite a few times, as soon as you graduate high school, you and me are going to get married. I'm going to get us a trailer and we're going to start our family right away. And I was scared, because even though I did want to get married and I did want to have children, I knew for a fact that he was not the one I wanted to have children with. Thankfully, he ghosted me when my grandfather passed away, because he was smothering and he was controlling, and I just couldn't stand that anymore. So, like I said, thankfully he ghosted me. What he did, I think I told that on the video too, but there was this party that he wanted me to go to with him. I didn't want to go. I've never been a party girl. I just don't like parties. They make me uncomfortable. I don't like them. But I told him I had to ask my mom, and I knew she was going to say no. And so I did ask her. She did say no, and I was so happy. Well, the night of the party comes up, and by then I think he and I had broken up, or he ghosted me or whatever. But there was this rumor going around that he and two other guys SA'd this girl. They all did this to this girl. And it was all at the same time. And I found out that that girl was probably supposed to be me. If I had gone to that party with him, it probably would have been me. The last thing I heard of him was from his cousin, who saw me after I had had my first child. And she was like, "He really did love you. He used to cry about you all the time, and he talked about you all the time, and he was talking about marrying you, and he really did love you." And she told me that he was married and had kids, and that he lived for his kids. And I was like, well, good for him. Well, I looked his name up on the internet, about a year or two ago and found out that he is an offender. You can put the three-letter word in front of that offender, but yeah, he's an offender. And I'm just thankful that I got away from him, because who knows what kind of life he'd have had me stuck in if I had married him. You know, I don't know. I'm just glad that things worked out in a way that I did not wind up with him. I don't care how much he would have loved our kids. This next guy is the man that my grandmother married. He was a creep, big time. This was in like the early 80s when she married him, and I don't know how she got mixed up with this man. I really don't. But I told in the video, I did a whole video on him, and I also told about the update on him in the same video that I was just talking about. But yeah, he beat my grandmother up really, really bad. He tried to kill her. He was going to kill her. He had every intention of killing her. And but thankfully we drove up and we got her, took her to the hospital, and she was pretty bad off that night. And the last I heard of him was he was in prison for the rest of his life for what he did to this woman and I guess a man. I heard that he unalived the man. Here I'm saying unalive when I said the K word already. He killed this man, but I forgot how. And he repeatedly assaulted the woman. He had her in a hotel room. He had her hemmed up in a hotel room. And so he was in prison for the rest of his life. The last thing I heard about him was that he died in prison from COVID. I'm going to put all the videos that, all the previous videos that I'm talking about, I'm going to put them in the description so that you can watch those to see who these guys are that I'm talking about. The first dude in the video that I'm talking about was the first time I ever brought him up. The last one I also did a whole video about. He was a guy who was, I said that he was a P word. He liked kids. He liked kids that were younger than him. And finding that out was devastating to me because he was like the first boy that I really, really liked. Like, I really, really did like him. And he was the first boy that I ever had held hands with. He was the first one that showed any true interest in me. But he liked kids that were younger than him, and one of those kids, unfortunately, was his own sister. And, God, that's so disgusting, but, I haven't heard anything else about him. The last thing I heard about him was that he was in jail for some reason, and that was from his mom. She just happened to see me when she came into the store I worked in one day, sometime in the 90s, and she told me about him because I asked about him. I was still curious about him because, after all, he was the first guy that I really liked. And she told me that he was in jail, but she didn't tell me why. And he had a kid by someone. And so I never really knew his real name, ever. I just knew his nickname. And so I don't know anything about him. I don't even know if he's still alive. But, just thinking about that and how close in proximity I was to men who committed some really dangerous and heinous crimes on other people and how evil they were. It just makes me thankful that they weren't in that mindset when I knew them. And if they were, they didn't get the chance to get to me. Because like I said, if my mom let me go to that party that night, or if I had married that guy, who knows, who knows. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Just some little known or unknown Alabama crimes concerning people that I knew. If you've had any kind of experiences with people who've committed crimes like that, or even more dangerous crimes, leave it in the comment. You can vent your frustrations and tell me what you think about this video. Like, share, and subscribe. That will help me out a great deal. I thank you guys so much. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I will try to get content out to you as often as I possibly can. I don't always get a chance to record, but when I can, and when I can think of anything, I will definitely put something up on this channel to keep y'all entertained. But until then, thank you guys so much for wasting time with me. I love you all very, very much. I hope to see y'all on the next upload, and bye for now.